So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second Mario webinar. So the goal of these webinars is to have a discussion forum for the role of personal robotics, in particular in the case of patients or people with dementia, so applying robotics to people with dementia. And today we have a presentation by Andy Bleaden. So Andy, it's from the Stockport Council, and he's a member of the Mario project. So he's one of the partners in the application of the Mario platform within the community. So making this interface between the users and the robotics platform. So Andy will give a presentation of about 30 minutes, then we'll have space for questions. So this is a flexible schedule, so but we should have a presentation of around 30 minutes with 20 minutes for questions. So Andy, maybe you could start a little bit introducing yourself and your background, and then it would be good to follow to the presentation.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. As my colleague said there, I'm Andy Bleaden. I work for Stockport Council, and I'm based here in the UK. We've been involved with the Mario project, as you've just heard. My background's in psychiatry, for some time in social care, but a lot of European cooperation. So I've had a long experience of working in European cooperation since I was a lot younger than I am today. But I enjoy it and actively get involved with it. I've also worked in regeneration and economic development. One of the things we're going to do today is obviously we'll talk about, as my colleagues have just said, we're going to talk about Project Mario. We've already had one webinar which talked generally about Project Mario and what it's aiming to achieve. But what we're going to do today is perhaps talk a little bit more about how we put users right in the center of this. So this is people who are actually living with dementia, how we've incorporated them into the project, certainly within Stockport. But just as a general background, for those people who don't know the project, Project Mario has been funded by the European Commission through the Horizon 2020 Research and Development Programme. And I mention that because that's quite important, not just because I'm English, and we keep hearing about Brexit and all the negativity from the press, but that's a very valuable fund because it's put money into a research area which has not been looked at before, which is a concept of targeting robotics, companion robotics, and people who are living in the community or living in different settings and sometimes living well with dementia. That concept itself, certainly in my background, has never been tested. And when I've mentioned it in the past, people have said, Andy, you can use robots for just general day-to-day life, but when it comes down to working with people who are living with dementia, they're not going to accept it. And that was, I thought, and a lot of people think, is a premise that's not been tested before. And certainly our experience with some of our projects we've done here in Stockport and elsewhere in the European Union is said that people who live well with dementia and living with dementia in the community have got a lot more skills and a lot more tolerance than we think. So the idea with Project Mario is we would use an existing robotic platform, build on that platform to make it much more user-friendly, targeting people who are living with dementia, user-friendly, and also try to make it more voice activated, develop a brand new platform, improve and develop the speech synthesis, etc. So that's a little bit about Project Mario. What I'd like to do, if I can, is I've got some notes here, which hopefully you should better see now. So if you want more information about Project Mario, I've put the website address up there at the top of my link, and there's also a link on the YouTube website. As I've said, it's a funded project, and which is targeting isolation and loneliness. that we know from our experience, both here in the UK and in Ireland and Italy, people who are living with dementia saying that they're very largely isolated and lonely. So the idea was to test whether we could use companion robots. So these aren't the robots that fetch and carry and perform functional tasks, but companion robots, and target people who are living with dementia. And what the project's done is developed speech synthesis and semantics using the latest technology in Europe, and also a brand new software platform, which is, we think and we hope, is much more usable. Doesn't rely on the things that we know and people with dementia have told us that they can't and struggle to use, such as keyboards and mice, etc. And what we're doing with that, we're testing that in Italy, in Ireland, and in Stockport. But you know, one of the things you'll ask is well, what are you actually testing? And the concept is quite simple. It's whether people who are living with dementia can accept and engage with robots or not. So this project's success is coming out with some facts about that instead of myths. Certainly when you work as I've done in social care, there's a lot of myths around whether it's mental health or dementia that sit there without being challenged. And what this project hopefully will do is challenge some of these. Let me give you some information about Stockport first. Stockport, as you can see on the map there, I try and try and make it easy for people to understand. I hope you can see the map. Basically, Stockport's in England, in the UK. That little place that sits across, not very far away from Central Europe. Hopefully not too far. Based up in England's northwest, and we're in Greater Manchester. So people ask where is Stockport? I just say it's next to Manchester, and they all nod and understand. Size-wise, we've got a population of about 280,000 people. We've got a strong history of European cooperation. Been involved with European funded programs and non-funded programs for as long as I've been in Stockport. And we've been active members of the European Innovation Partnership on Active and Healthy Aging, which has been strongly supported both by the European Commission and more recently with work and engagement with Funkanu as well. But we're also strong supporters and members of both the European Connected Health Alliance, both in here in Greater Manchester, but also in its wider settings across Europe. And also, we've been members of the Corral group, which is the active and assisted living cities. So these are cities who are trying to develop smart regions. But for us, we've also been members, or we've been the founding members of the Covenant for Demographic Change, which was set up last year, led by Age Platform, excellent work by Age Platform in Brussels, to get cities working around developing successful age-friendly environments. I've got some facts here for you. I'm not going to go through these facts because I'll probably here for another week, but this is some of the facts we've got from our joint strategic needs assessment. And if you want to come back and look at these as part of the video later, or I can put a link on to the PowerPoint, you can come back and see. This paints a picture of, from 2014 that we did in Stockport, about some facts about Stockport in terms of the older people that we work with. So here you can see, you know, countless facts, and I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to go through them. It gives you a good picture, I think, of the picture here in Stockport. What do we do in Stockport in Europe? Well, we get involved with user specifications via classic co-production in both funded and in non-funded projects. So we've been had citizens here in Stockport involved with both types, but we've got a strong history of working around co-production for quite some time now. Co-production is what we call it in the UK. Obviously, in other countries, it's co-creation or co-design, etc. But here we refer to it as co-production. And we act in end users in trials as well in funded projects, such as with Project Mario, and help out with dissemination in a lot of projects. We also get involved, I keep saying this, we get involved with non-funded activity and been involved with the development of Greater Manchester's 3-star reference site for the European Innovation Partnership on Active and Healthy Aging, which was very, very meaningful for us. As you can see there's a picture of us, colleagues picking up from Greater Manchester, health and social care and political support there was very important for us when we attended the Aging Summit in Brussels this year. As I've talked about, we've been involved with other networks and groups, and certainly most recently in a new piece of work undertaken or led by the Commission and Ian Sparrow, which is around the Agile Aging Alliance, which is really, really important work around developing age-friendly housing in Europe. So that's something else we've been involved with. And obviously we share some of our best practice and influence. And we get involved with Europe. I mean, people say, well, why do you do this? Is it just for cash? Well, no, we have been involved with projects because we get involved with access to new technology, like we are here with Mario, and with our previous project. You can see here the Project Silver. We have not, up until recently, had access to brand new technology when it's being built. And what it means for us is we can get users involved with co-producing that design, so it's not produced in the wrong way, and that's quite important. And we also get involved with Europe because cooperation works. We wouldn't be able to do this project, Project Mario, on our own in the UK, certainly, because we haven't got necessary skills and expertise and SMEs and the specialist skills within the UK. But also we get involved with Europe, and it's quite an important point in this. We've got political buy-in to this because it's important for our council to do so. And that's not to be dismissed, because it means we haven't got to go back continuing and ask, should we get involved in Europe, which never used to sound that important, but more recently with recent events you can see is quite important with the Brexit thing. What it also does, it allows us to get access to other best practice, which we do with colleagues from Corel and say perhaps colleagues from Southern Denmark, and also we can have influence, which is very important. But I've got to say this. Is why on earth not? Why would you not want to have access to some of the best ideas across Europe and some of the best practice and best people involved with these things? It just seems daft not to. So Stockport and Project Mario. What I want to do today is run through what our role has been in Mario, why we joined it. When I talk about living with dementia, what we mean and what that means in Stockport. I talk about our colleagues at Educate and also the Stockport pilot setting. Stockport's role in Mario has been very much, we're package leaders on the user specification. So one of the guiding principles of Project Mario, and we thought was really important when we created the project, it was users would be right at the center in terms of designing what the robot would look like, what functionality it would have, because otherwise, why would they use it? It's one of the, it's one of the things that, the more we look at these theories around co-production, you involve people at the beginning because you're going to get their input at the beginning, and you're more likely to get it right rather than have another product that sits on the shelf that no one uses. So this concept of getting it right first time was really important for us. We've also been quite involved with the dissemination, doing events like today, and obviously bits of social media, and also dissemination across some of the wider networks in the European Innovation Partnership. Obviously, locally, we've developed a pilot to test out this, but that's got to fit with 3 other settings. And I'll talk about those other settings in a minute, because obviously we can't just test this in isolation. And right now, we're involved with testing this product with local people in Stockport. We've got a robot here in Stockport now. We've got another one on the way. And then obviously we've also been involved with some of the exploitation. This is, what we're going to do with some of the elements that have been produced within Mario after the project's finished, because this has to go to market. The European Commission don't fund this just purely for the research side of things. This is, the speech semantics, the software platform, etc., are marketable and should be exploitable at the end of Project Mario. This is a picture of me with my esteemed colleague Amy Tier, who's been involved with the testing here. Why do we join Mario? And we have to ask this constantly. Why do we actually get involved with this project? Because as soon as you ask it, you realise why we're doing it, and it guides what we do. We looked at getting involved with a project around robotics, and we targeted originally people living with dementia, because the feedback we were getting from some of the groups we were working with is the people who are living in the community in Stockport feel isolated. very isolated, not necessarily living on their own, they're living with other people sometimes, but they still feel isolated from the social groups, their friends from work, their family, etc. Because of the stigma that's still there with dementia, they're starting to feel isolated. We also got involved in Stockport because we wanted to test those perceptions we had around dementia and robotics. And I've got to say this, and hopefully all my project partners don't all fall on the floor and laugh, but we got involved because of the excellence that was there in the partnership. And that was important for us. We had what we thought were excellent partners from the world of robotics in terms of the hardware side, but also some of the software people who were involved with creating, a brand new platform. Some of them, the people who've been involved from project partners based in the UK, both in Italy, and their expertise shone for the proposal, and I think that was really important for us. But we also got involved because, as I said at the beginning, Project Mario had this idea or concept about being user-led and driven by people who are living with dementia. So co-production was at its heart. And we also were quite impressed because we wanted to see something where it was progression beyond the state of the art. So we could see what was the current technology around robotics. And also, we could see how we could develop that. So we could move beyond what the current technology was, from the existing platforms you had with robotics to the one you can see on the screen there. And also, we could see plans for exploitation as well, which were really important about taking this further. So in terms of we talked about living well with dementia in Stockport. We do have a slightly different approach in Stockport than some cities do. We have been involved with various, like a lot of cities, around sort of dementia-friendly communities in Stockport. And a lot of the services around dementia are user-led in Stockport. So an example of this is the Educate group, which I'll talk about further in a moment. And they're very much driving new work around a concept of doing dementia differently here in Stockport, which is being picked up by partners across Europe. One of our proudest moments was during, as you can see the pictures there, during the G8 summit, led by a chap called David Cameron. Whatever happened to him? But our former Prime Minister led a very, very important session in the UK on dementia. And we were very proud that one of our members of the Educate group presented at that dementia summit in front of world leaders about the life experience of what it's like to live with dementia. That was a stark difference, to put someone on the stage and discuss what it's actually like for them, not a patient of theirs, for them to live with dementia. As I mentioned, Educate is a wonderful group we've got in Stockport. You can see it stands for Early Dementia Users Cooperative Aiming to Educate. We've been involved with them for some time in a variety of European projects. But this is Stockport-based people who are living with dementia and and trying to promote the concept of living well with dementia in the community, and about raising awareness, both with other people who are living with dementia, carers, family members, but professionals as well, about their life experience of what it's like to be with dementia, live with dementia. And they target those training sessions at people who are living with dementia, carers and staff. They very, 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 very successful group who won an award from the European Foundation for Initiatives on Dementia about 2 or 3 years ago, a European-wide award because of the work that they do. And I say they do because it's user-led. It's not led by the council. Oh, I'll go back. The pilot setting here in Mario is different. We've got within Mario 3 test settings. One's in Ireland in a community care setting. One's in Italy in a hospital setting. You may have seen this on the previous webinar. And in Stockport, the pilot setting is very much a community-based one. So it's home-based, particularly home-based, always going to be home-based. We're thinking of using drop-ins, dementia cafes. But the concept around it's the word we try to think, it's very, very informal. It's not so formalized as some of the other settings we've got within Mario. Progress so far. With this, I want to talk through a couple of things, both in terms of the work we did around user specification, as Andrea and colleagues have said, some of the work we've done around acceptability testing, some of the work around ethics, the work we've done with staff, and also, more importantly, the work we've done with people living with dementia and carers and family. So the user specification, what we did when we, obviously, you know, we wanted to meet with people who are living with dementia and say, you know, what do you understand by what's your concept of what robots can do, what they could help with, what should they look like, what would you like, you know, what would you like assistance with? And we met with groups of both people living with dementia, carers and staff, we've had some questionnaires, and we had some surprising feedback. And I put that in because it was surprising, because again, this is about challenging myths. And we were worried about what people's concepts would be. I mean, it was quite an informal, quite humorous process we did, and quite fun as well, where we asked people what they would like. And very much from Stockport, some of the feedback was we want something that's a bit of an assistant, something that's friendly. You know, some of the robots you see on the streets, on adverts, can be a bit clunky and a bit, I don't know, a bit metallic looking, but they want something that looks friendly, that's got a nice appearance, that's softly spoken. They ask for something that's easy to use. They ask for something that will give them reminders, but also to provide practical assistance, so help finding things. So Mario's got a device on the front for finding lost items using an RFID sensor. But also they talked about having something that could be useful, could play films and videos and music, read them books and the newspapers, and show them pictures and interact with them. And that was the feedback that was going. So it was quite surprising, because this has not been done. And that was feedback gathered both here in Stockport and in Galway, with the University of Galway in Ireland, and with IRCCS in Italy. We've also been undertaking some acceptability testing, and this was the idea behind this was obviously, if you just turn up with a robot and shove it in front of people and say, what, you know, have a go and tell me, does it work, etc., they'd probably run a mile. I certainly would. So the idea was to test people's visual, when you first introduce a robot, their first impressions of what they thought would be, you know, what do they think about what it looked like, or what do they think about what it was, the functionality, or what, you know, what some of the buttons did, etc. We wanted to know, would people be scared by this? Because a lot of staff we spoke to said we were worried about people would be quite scared, intimidated by all the technology. We wanted to see whether they would interact. We wanted to explain what it could and couldn't do, because obviously, people, you know, what you understand about robotics, you're very much informed by what you might see on TV, and also explain what we're looking to bring in the future. And the feedback was for us very, very positive. You know, people liked the look of it. They said it looked friendly and kind and easy to use. But the picture I've got there, it's one of those pictures I've used quite often because it paints 1,000 words. The woman who was in the picture provided some lovely feedback about Mario, and the feedback was quite simply astonishing for us. And I wrote it down and took a picture at the time because it was lovely. Because, you know, you're dealing with human beings, and human beings react in a different way. And her feedback was this. She had a question. She said, "Oh," I said, "Do you like the robot?" "Oh yes," it said, "It's lovely. It's very cute." A lovely little English word. I mean, a million things to a million different people. It's very cute, she said, "But can we have it in with some, like, a furry background, because I'd like to be able to cuddle it." And that, for me, shows the level of acceptability about having a robot for her in her house, because she wants something that's quite tactile. And that's different than what we would think about certainly in previously. There's obviously some ethical involvement with this. It's a new area for Stockport. There's been changes in Stockport in terms of, you know, the local council, and we're integrating currently with our NHS colleagues. And so we've had different approaches to ethics in the past, because most of our involvement in the past has been around user-led interaction. And certainly the question around ethics doesn't pop up so much when users take the lead. However, we're involved with the fruits of quite formal research, and we're involved with the local NHS. So our approach to ethics has changed and has had to adapt as we've gone on, which is proven to be fun, but means we still have to go through certain regulatory pieces of work on behalf of that. That's what we're doing with the kind help of colleagues from the local NHS. We did some testing with some staff. So we did some initial training and some acceptability staff, and we targeted 3 groups. We wanted to see what we got, feedback we got from social care staff, also from health and physio staff, both here in the council and external colleagues as well. But we also wanted some feedback from IT professionals to see, what they, they could provide support for, etc., and help us. Because obviously we need, I certainly don't have that background in robotics, but when things go wrong, etc. And their feedback was quite interesting. And of course, being IT people, the first thing they did was steal the robot and took it on a tour around their IT department for everyone to see, because they're nuts about robots and anything slightly quirky. So that was quite good feedback. But the feedback we have from staff was, again, very similar. It's quite a friendly looking robot. There's concerns about whether it's maybe a little bit too clunky at first, and some of the feedback around some of the visual prompts on Mario was quite important. But we tested that, went out to see groups of people of various sizes of groups of people, both in sort of formal and informal sessions, and we got early involvement of a person with living dementia right at the very beginning in the early training sessions. But most of our feedbacks come from sessions with the colleagues at Educate, and we've had a lot of interaction with individuals and groups in different settings, both in a nice sociable setting, and the lot of interactions been around looking at the acceptability and some of the issues we've had around functionality, and the feedback, as I said, has been very, very positive, with some surprising early interest in interacting with the robot. So we very often do a presentation about the project and the robot, and then we leave the robot to one side, maybe have a cup of tea and relax with people. And it's very often people get up and go and interact with the robot themselves, just on their own, which we think is quite positive. We also went out and tried to get some feedback from both carers and family. So we did some drop-in sessions at a cricket club here in Stockport, targeting both carers and people living with dementia. Large turnout. We did 2 little separate sessions for people there. We had family members there. But one of the important things about this session, it's one of those sessions, it's user-driven. So it was somebody who'd seen the robot at a previous session, said, I think you should bring it along to this cricket club and demonstrate it there. And again, we did a demonstration there. We had a few technical issues with the robot's functionality, but we did a demonstration of its functionality and showed people in a nice setting in Stockport some of the functionality of Mario. And some of the feedback we had there was slightly different, because a lot of the carers were quite concerned that perhaps were expecting too much from people who struggle to use basic technology at home, some of the people that they care for. And some of the feedback was very valuable in terms of some of the prompts that you're getting from the voice side of Mario being perhaps a little bit too complicated and too hard to understand. In terms of what's next with Mario, we're going to be rolling out further testing. We've got further testing planned for the next, well, certainly the next half of the year, here in Stockport, in Italy, and in Ireland as well. We're developing our test plan, because we've had to change slightly our test plan, and now we're not looking at perhaps doing unsupervised testing so much, but perhaps testing in either community settings, like the ones I've just shown you, and other drop-in sessions in Stockport and outside of Stockport as well, and getting feedback from groups and letting them interact with the robots that we've got. And here you can see people, very often we have quite informal sessions where people just, the robot's stuck in the corner, and very often people go and interact with it all by themselves without any prompting, and very quickly try and have a conversation with Mario, which is quite interesting. We also want to do some small interview groups where we can perhaps observe what's going on and get some feedback from people as and when they're using it in smaller groups, so groups of maybe 2 or 3, so we can get much more valuable qualitative feedback about the impact and the usefulness of Mario. It's not just what it looks like, it's how much use it will be in reducing their isolation at home. And we want to continue also working with staff and find out what their feedback is. And also, we continue our dissemination across Europe. We presented just recently at the Smart Cities Conference in Brussels last week, presented the Project Mario. And we've presented it, and we're going to continue to present it. We presented it at the at the Asian Summit in Brussels, where we got good feedback. But it's quite general. So in phase one, we're going to be improving the levels of functionality in Mario, improving the things it can do. We obviously need to get some more ethics approval for the testing we're going to do. We've got to design some questionnaires in partnership with colleagues. We're carrying out questionnaires and use observation, like I've said. But we want to link up with other sites to see and obviously share the feedback we're getting. It's going to need more resources from our side in terms of testing, because obviously instead of just presenting it to a large group of people, we need dedicated people sat down doing observation testing, etc., research, generic sort of research side of things. But we want to, we need in these sort of things to actually test how people use it, how they interact. And you can see there, people just tend to get on with it, and that's one of the things that we find surprising. That the measure of that is if they're quite keen to just get on, can the robot keep up with them? Because that's one of the big questions. And you can see here a gentleman here who's quite happily just engages with the robot whilst we were doing something else. You can also see there the RFID sensor at the front of the robot, which is used for helping to find the lost items such as glasses and wallets and keys and TV remotes. And one rather nice gentleman said he wondered if he could find his wife every now and again because she keeps losing her, which I thought was rather sweet. She didn't seem that impressed. So the test plan we've got, as I said, is 3 community settings where we'll get large levels of impact in terms of being able to measure people's assessment of how useful it will be, but also in these small interview groups to get quality assessments. We want to look at the feedback from staff and carers. We want to test improvements, because obviously the software people behind Mario are adding functionality to this on a constant basis. So the Mario we've got now is different than the Mario we had delivered back in at the end of September, and the functionality has been improving greatly since then. But also the feedback we're getting from people about some of the functionality will then prompt new upgrades, and that's one of the positive things with Mario is that the platform will become enhanced as we move on. In terms of the other thing we've got to measure using reusable tools, that the impact on people themselves who are living with dementia. So as part of our assessment, we'll be using the tools that you can see on the European Commission's MAFIP site, which is a common framework for measurement of impact, and using those, and then hopefully sharing those with the wider European Union as well. In a community setting, we've got 4 distinct venues where we've got people there educate. We're looking to do a dementia drop-in site in a place called Marble, which is the cricket club again, and one in a place called Heaton, which is another user-led dementia drop-in setting that we've got run by and for the community, and also work closely with local Alzheimer's Society. We visited this week in Stockport to give a demonstration of. So it's a large setting and it's user driven, which is, I think, is quite important with this. It's not just us just turning up with a robot and asking people questions. These are people who've asked us to come along because of what they've heard, and they're interested, very interested in what robots can do. The small interview groups we've got, as I said, we've developed this concept because the project's changed, because we're now no longer looking to just place a Mario in someone's home because it's issues around maybe safety and health and safety. So we're going to be doing supervised testing with small groups, and these will be developed with and alongside people who are living with dementia. This is something we're doing, and it's been a concept that was brought up by the group in Stockport, who said, well, we can instead of just doing group things or individual things, we'll do small groups, and they're quite used to that process and have been involved with that before. But it will give us qualitative observation and questionnaires feedback as well, and again we'll be able to measure impact and see, this is the important thing, that you can't get in group settings, real engagement with people. So how they actually engage with the robot. So, you know, for instance, if they use, as you can see a picture there of the music app that comes with Mario. You know, if we demonstrate the music app and people use it, can they go back to it in 30, 40 minutes and use it again? Because if they can't, then it can't be, it's not going to add that level of functionality. What we're looking to get from staff, and you see pictures of staff interacting in social care and health staff here, is again, is to challenge that perception, because this is a new concept where we don't, as much as we show lots of pictures with people with robots, we don't on our daily basis work with robots. We don't do, and we haven't done at all in the past. So it's a new concept for us, and it's also about raising expectations, because people's expectations of robots is that, you know, they can do functional skills, and it's about challenging some of those expectations and raising them as well, but also interacting with staff, because, you know, staff may have concerns around this project, whether it be a threat to their jobs, and people in social care, you know, may think, well, this might replace my job, and it's not right that you interact with robots with people on their own in the community. And this project's around challenging some of those, so we've got sessions planned with staff, and also regular sessions with families as well. I talked about the European perspective, and Mario's been making some star appearances, and we've interacted both with colleagues from European Connected Health Alliance at the European Aging Summit. We've done presentations with the European Innovation Partnership on Active and Healthy Aging, not just to present the project and get a tick for project dissemination, but to test those levels of perceptions and challenging people's ideas around the use of robotics with and for people who are living with dementia. So you can see there in the picture, colleagues from Ireland and Italy turned up with the Project Mario, and Robosoft turned up at the Aging Summit along with us, and presented Mario to a huge group of people, both from the UK, from Norway, and we did a special presentation for people with Norway. We had the commissioner turn up, and turn up and have a look at Mario as well as the president of the Committee of the Regions, Marky Markle. Which was it was an astonishing success for us. We got a lot of positive feedback and a lot of future interest for us. We've been involved with the D4 group, the Age-Friendly Environments group, with the European Innovation Partnership. We've talked about Mario there. I've also discussed Mario and looked to present it at the Agile Aging Alliance that I mentioned earlier on, and also we've just recently got involved with the Smart Cities group that are looking to, for the first time, start looking at active and healthy aging. So that's the end of my presentation. I'd like to see if you've got any questions. I think I can probably press that button, stop sharing, and back to my ugly face again. Hopefully you've enjoyed the presentation today. If you've got any questions, I think Andre and colleagues there have got a process for you to tap in questions. So, can't guarantee they'll answer them, all of them. And I won't be answering any questions about Donald Trump, you'll be pleased to hear, because he's not on my radar for today. Hopefully keep him away.
Thanks a lot, Andy, for that nice presentation. So let's go now to the QA session. So we have a couple of questions here. I'll just start with the question from Helena. So what's the earliest age of dementia onset? Do you take into account the fact that some patients might be younger and might need a different care regarding their specific needs?
The earliest, I mean, obviously we're technically a target group for us is 55 plus. However, the groups that we engage with in Stockport include people who are under that age group. So we're getting, and this is a pattern we're getting across Europe now, we're getting younger and younger diagnosis of people with dementia. So they're presenting to the groups on a more regular basis now.
Okay, so the second question is from Jordi. How do you manage the fact that you base your design on today's users who, regarding interacting with digital device, are very different to the new digital elderly people of future generations? So how do you see these requirements for the platform changing? Do you see any differences between age groups on their acceptability of the platform?
Okay, that's quite a good question. It's an easy one to answer for me because here in Stockport, when I've done the user specification testing and the acceptability testing, one of the questions I always ask is trying to get people moving. Is okay, who, hands up, a straightforward hands up, who here has a mobile phone, a smartphone, and I ask this separately question: a mobile phone, or a smartphone, or a tablet? And most of them will put their hands up for one of those. I then asked the other question, which was how many of you actually use it? How many, and then we have a discussion about why and why not, because some people obviously struggle. Most people talk about that device that I put away in my drawer because I find it too difficult to use. But we are finding people who are quite engaged, and that's a surprising thing for us, because I've spent probably the last 10 years of my life worrying about projects disregarding people who are digitally excluded. Unfortunately, or I should say fortunately actually, what's happened is events have caught up with us and overtaken us, because for many years we worried about people having access to computers with keyboards and mice and people don't tend to use these as much anymore. They use tablets, touch screen, and more recently, more voice activated technology. So we have a broad range of people. We have people who don't touch any technology at all. And we also have, this was a session from this week, we have people who are buying new technology, such as, and this is not an advert, so please don't accept an endorsement from Stockport Council, but such as the new voice activated thing from Amazon or Google or whoever else produces these things, because they can interact with it. They can just shout an instruction, play me some music, what's the weather like today, what's the news, etc. All the things that we thought would be targeted, and all the marketing for these things is just targeted 20 something or others, but these are people who actually think that will work for me, because I don't have to press those stupid buttons on my smartphone, which I can't see because I've got failing, or I'm struggling with my eyesight or my perception, so I can talk to a device. So as I say, very much that the technology is catching us up and has overtaken us, and people are voting with their feet. Whereas 3 years ago, and I mean literally 3 years ago, we were struggling to think, well, how are we going to use technology with people who are digitally excluded? They're all turning up with their iPads to the sessions we're running now, or their smartphones. And they're all on Facebook, and they've got their photos that they want to share, and they want to use Skype. So we're seeing a gradual increase of those people. And those are people that are informing the user specification, and they're involved with the testing.
So thanks. The next question, any negative initial feedback from dementia patients regarding the robot, and did their opinion of it change it as they interacted with the robot?
It's actually the other way around. It's one of the nice things of when you do this work is when you turn up with the Mario, with the picture you just saw of the robot, and because you're going to a new setting, you have to drive it in now with a remote control. First response is one of two, which is everyone starts shouting "Hello, Mario," assuming that they can talk to them straight away. So initially, we thought there'd be a bit of concern, and we'd have to perhaps keep Mario to one side. No, we're almost pushed out of the way. Get out of the way. Let's touch the robot. And that's something that's been quite a shock for us, because we thought people will get some negative feedback. It's too complicated. It's whatever. Our experience has been the other way around. So people are quite keen to get involved in touch. Obviously, the functionality of the robot's quite basic at the beginning, and what people may not understand to start off with is you know, they can't just shout an instruction, "Hello Mario, play me some music. How are you today?" etc. etc. They expect a response back. So we need to make sure we've got people's expectations right before we go and see them. And I'll give another example. One of the groups we went to see, I'm sure I probably get told off for saying this, but one of the groups we went to see, we were going to cancel the session because we were having technical difficulties with the robot, and they were so keen to see the robot. They said, "Well, just bring it along anyway, even if it doesn't work. Bring the robot along." That was a surprise, and that was for us an astonishing surprise, because you kind of think, well, what's the point? But they were so excited about seeing a robot that they were prepared to just put up with the fact that, you know, might have to hit it with a big hammer. Sorry about that, technical guys, but we might have to hit it with a hammer to get it working. But they were just really keen. They just wanted to see it, and we asked people why, because we you know, I wouldn't want to necessarily go along to a demonstration of a piece of software that didn't work. I've been to enough of them in my time, so I didn't necessarily want to put that on anybody else. But they came up with something that's quite interesting, which is a lot of them were of the generation that grew up with pictures, images of robots. Robots would be the thing that would save their backs, save their boredom from doing mechanical tasks. They used to see adverts for them on the TV. This is what the future will be when you're 55 or 60. A robot will take care of you. So they've been told this for 40, 50 years. So they want to see what it looks like. You know, they've seen pictures on the internet. Maybe they've seen pictures on the news of these fancy robots in Japan, always in Japan, where they've got thousands of people they can put into working with them. They want to see what one looks like, because you know, their expectations in this country is they've not seen one. They've probably seen a robot that can cut the grass and that can hoover, and that can play them silly songs. Well, ours can't hoover or cut the grass. It can play some songs, and it's got a lot more functionality. So they have got an expectation they want to see.
So the next question: what are the long-term expectations for when or if speech impairments start to develop? So I think the question is in the direction of, yeah, if you have use cases that cope with that, yeah, and how the platform plans to cope with this.
Certainly the speech software that we've got is developing and needs to recognize people's issues with their, or not so much, but people's ability to speak and also comprehend as well. But you've got to understand that we're targeting a group. This isn't going to be a permanent placement in people's homes. If it gets to market, the idea behind this level of functionality is it will be targeting people with early onset, early diagnosis of dementia in terms of the companion function. That means for us that it's targeting people whose abilities and skills are less impaired by their diagnosis. So we would use the term that they're still living well with dementia. They may have, they may have lost some levels of functionality. Their cognitive skills might be quite low. Their hearing or the sight might be impaired as well. But they're still living relatively well in the community. So, we're talking about people who are living at home in their community still. So in some ways, that way we're targeting Mario, and the idea of using voice recognition is because we still know that that's still possible with these people at this stage.
The next question: how will the long-term memorability be tackled regarding the problematic of people not being able to recognize it as something friendly, helpful, and then perhaps becoming anxious? So how the platform reacts, or what are the design requirements that are in the platform to tackle this problem?
Yeah, you're gonna have to excuse me. I'm being blinded by something we get in the UK once every 100 years, which is the sun. So I'm just gonna have to pull the curtain down a second. This is a rare occasion. It's probably to do with Donald Trump. I don't know. I doubt it's Brexit. They said it were going to be sunnier after Brexit, so who knows? Anyway, so the question was around you just repeat the last bit again. I heard the first bit.
Yeah, how will the long-term memorability be tackled regarding the problematic of people not being able to recognize it as something friendly, helpful? And then this will arise some anxiety from the user side.
Again, I would probably go back to the previous answer. We're targeting this at people with very certainly in Stockport with earlier onset of their dementia, but also we're also building in certainly in the site in Italy an ability for Mario to carry out a comprehensive geriatric assessment, a CGA, which can help determine and measure people's functional ability using several tests. And obviously we're carrying out quality of life assessments as well, part of our assessments, both here and in Ireland as well. So we'll be able to measure that at all. But again, I refer back to what we said just now. This is something we'll be using with people, I think, because they want to interact, because they're looking for some companion, something to interact with. When that stops, there's a little function in having a robot there. So again, that's one of the things we're looking at with the robot, is what level of involvement can people have, and perhaps how long. Also, how that ends, because obviously this will be a temporary product for people in terms of managing their functional cognitive decline with dementia. And very much, the group we went to see in Stockport, some of the people there, whereas when we first introduced the concept a year and a half ago and did the user specifications, I know that they would struggle with using that robot now. Whereas a year and a half ago they couldn't, they would have had no problem at all. So wouldn't be feasible or even useful for them to have an engagement or use of a robot, a companion robot.
So in your presentation, you emphasized a lot the affective aspect, so that people engage a lot in the ability of the robot to answer in a meaningful way, or the cuteness aspect of the robot. How do you see in terms of, if you could rate how this is important in contrast to the functionalities, the more objective and pragmatic functionalities of the robot? Where are the user expectations? Are more in the affective aspect or more in the functional aspect? If you could rate a percentage.
It depends, and it depends entirely on the users we've got. We've got people who are living in our community who they want to just talk to the robot and talk with the robot. So if, for instance, I'll paint a scenario here. If we're going to we're looking to bring in a reminiscence tool with this robot with Mario that uses pictures from family photographs, weddings, holidays, etc. for that person, and it doesn't just show a random slideshow. You can do that with a tablet or a phone. It actually engages with people and says, can you remember where this is, or who's in the picture, and listens to the response. It's not just a quick question testing with 3 buttons on. Listens to the response. That's the level of expectation we're trying to get with the platform with Mario, so that somebody will be able to look at their Christmas photo, the photos from Christmas 10 years ago, and Mario would say, can you remember where this is? Yes. Where is it? And part of the work we would have to do is obviously promote, sorry, that's the wrong word, populate the photographs with data, metadata, tags, etc. So the photos are of Christmas of 2006. There's Uncle Fred, Auntie Susan, my brother, my husband, me, and various children, all in there as metadata, as tags. And the concept hopefully would be that we can test it with people. People can then use that and try and test the memory, keep their skills going in terms of their reminiscent skills. That's what people are looking for, that engagement, that level of engagement with the robot. They want to be able to ask the robot what the weather is. It's a big thing in England. What's weather? You know, we could look out the window, but we'd rather ask what's the weather today. You know, except on days like today when it's sunny. They want to be able to maybe ask the time. They maybe want to have an interaction with somebody on a repetitive basis. So we were told quite bluntly by somebody it would be nice to have, and that they were a care of somebody. It would be nice to have somebody who could go through the appointments for today as well as me, because I have to do it maybe 40 times a day with the person I live with, and that's, you know, it's mentally stressful for them. It would be nice to have somebody to read the weather out or tell the time, or to say who they are, and to interact with somebody who's feeling quite isolated on their own. So that I would say more of the what we're trying to see is, or people are trying to say, is about the interaction, the verbal interaction. Yes, it looks nice. Yes, it's got cute eyes. No, it's not got a furry coat on. But then the other side of the coin is it's not 100% voice activated, because we also know from other tests that we've done that people, when they have things in their own home, like robotic devices or a smart TV or whatever the product's been in the past, very often that product comes back with a hat on or a scarf, because people personalize it. And that's something that you mustn't forget when you're doing tests. People will want to personalize the thing that they're with. They may give it a different name. Obviously, we call this Mario, but they may want to give it another name. They may want a different voice. They may want a male voice and not a female voice. They may want to have a voice of their own peer age group. They may want to have something with a local accent. Very much what we've been we've been involved with another European funded project called eWall. And the idea behind eWall was that you'd have it's a really, really clever concept of a TV screen that had somebody of your age as an avatar that would interact with you. Not that in terms of visual, but the voice would be someone of your age. That idea of peer support, and we know that peer support works. So we've got that question already from people: is can we change the voice? Can we change the tone? Can we change the accent? Can we have a woman and not a man, or a man not a woman? Very much the actual functionality of Mario in terms of what it can physically do, other than play things and do stuff. As I said, it's got this tool on the RFID sensor, which hopefully we'll be able to test out for one of the requests that people said. I'm fed up of losing the TV control or my glasses. So the idea is we would get a little sticker and put the sticker on the device, map where the device is, say that this is your remote control, and then when they lose remote control, it can go find it or locate it. And that's just a physical functionality that some of the people wanted. Okay. Okay.
So this was our last question. Thanks a lot, Andy, for your great answers and for your very nice talk. And yeah, we should have a next webinar on February, by the middle of February, date still to be announced, and also, yeah, topics still to be announced. Yeah, and thanks everybody for being here and asking the questions and participating. So see you.
Okay, thanks from me as well.
Thanks. Bye now.
Okay.